was it kind of like?
Dave Fanning over there, you know.
It just kind of come to you.
Yeah, no, we started. I suppose like because it was so long ago since we did Heroes or Ghosts that we were lucky that we had a bit of time really, and we really had the guts 2 years when we were together on the road, gigging and going through things together, which I think helped for the four of us writing songs together, which happens a bit more in this album, you know. And then really we went down to Kerry and started working. That would have been last January, and got about 5 or 6 more. Going over to Cornwall was just, we thought about a few different producers, and John Cornfield was probably the top of our list, and we literally just sent him an email asking him would he be into doing the album, and he heard the demos and he said yeah, and that was it, and there was no mad record company or official thing. He just liked the tunes, and he said he'd do it, and we were delighted, and he said it would work out best if we went over to the studio that he owns, called Sawmills, and it's a really great studio. Some amazing bands have been there, Oasis and Muse and Razorlight and stuff like that, and their albums that he's done as well. He did 2 Muse albums and 2 Supergrass. And
his main kind of idea for us when we got there was to try and get kind of live sounding takes and stuff, and he wasn't up for kind of doing it again and again. It was just sort of get it kind of captured and try and get it there. So luckily the first album allowed us to do loads and loads of gigs. I don't know how many gigs we did in the intervening 2 years or whatever, but we basically got better as a band. We kind of became a band, I suppose, over those 2 years rather than when we were initially in the studio for the first album. So we were able to, I thought we were able to achieve what he wanted of just kind of live takes and just make it sound kind of real.
Listen dear, please let me explain. There's so much wrong, but there's no one to blame. I find it hard that we left it so well. It's just a break, not an end in itself.
Over in the Mill as well, it was such a productive place, you know, and it was so secluded, and we had to get a little boat over to the creek and everything, and over to the pub, the local pub, and we basically just locked ourselves away in the house for 6 weeks, and the house was right above the studio, and it was great to have that sort of freedom if you weren't feeling it. And as Dave were talking about taking the piss out of him about vibe, because he'd always say that, and he'd always be like, yeah, if it's not working, go upstairs and chill out for a while and then come back down and do it later, you know. And I found that great, especially with the vocals. We spread out the vocals over the whole album. It wasn't like pressure situations of 2 days to do the whole album. We did it track by track and sort of progressing a track and moving it along as it went after we got all the drums done. And it was, as Dave said, it was a really good way of doing it, because we were sort of becoming this sort of live band where people were saying, oh, you should try and get the album to sound like your gigs, you know, and I think that was, John really brought out the best in that in him.
Please don't go. My heart grows cold at the thought you're out of sight, but never off my mind. And now I know the hardest part was just watching you go.
Like, it's the name of one of the songs in the album, and it never really was a contender for the title of the album. And we had thrown out a load of different names, and the song actually came about when we were in America in November, and we had a bus driver who at the start we thought he was just a little bit strange or whatever, but as our tour developed, we realised he was actually a psychopath and an ex-convict, and that we were fearing for our lives. But it's just a funny story that Dave wrote about him and the you know, and our time there with him, like, you know. So, but as I say, it was never a contender really for the album title, and we were throwing out different names. We've seen Someone Else's Hands or Far From Here, and I think we just wanted to pick something that was a bit different, you know. And when finally when someone said Honey was next con, we were all just like, because it's just a bit different, and I suppose it wasn't the obvious choice, and it stood out a bit, and we didn't want another name that sounded like Heroes or Ghosts or whatever, you know. So. It just seemed everyone agreed on it, and it's nice to have the story to tell people about it. So you're not like, what does Heroes or Ghosts mean? Yeah, I suppose with this album, the way we've come to finish it and how it is at the moment, like, we're just really proud of it, and it definitely outdid my expectations of what it would be like. You know, the songs coming together the way they did, and especially the 2 songs that we got right at the end really added to it, and that was All the Luck in the World and Won't Leave You Alone, which were the 2 end songs, and it just really like the hardest thing we're dropping out songs, you know, because we didn't want to have a really long album, and I think that's a good sign when your hardest job is what to leave out. You know, you want like you like different songs for different reasons, and so I definitely outdid my expectations. That was a long answer to that question. Wasn't it? Simple question, yes.
Works out effortlessly. Would you mind if I don't
I was delighted with just how easy John was to work with and how we all kind of got there in the end. And I think over the course of the 5 weeks or whatever we were over there, we sort of came together a good bit as a band in terms of how we played. Like we all got a little more confidence and stuff, as opposed to sort of sitting back and letting Danny do all the work sometimes. Like we sort of, the band kind of came together a bit, and as Danny mentioned, there's 2 songs, particularly the last song on the album, that wasn't a song before we went over there. So for the 4 of us just to be literally just sitting around and just kind of doing it, and kind of knowing that we needed another kind of good tune to finish off, like, and kind of actually produce this little song that is one of my favourite songs on the album. That's really, really heartening that we were able to do that. So yeah, absolutely delighted.
You kept the weight of the world inside together.